There's a quiet kind of courage we don't talk about enough, the courage it takes to slow down when the world keeps telling you to speed up. We're constantly pushed toward bigger goals, faster results, louder achievements. We celebrate the hustle, the grind, the never-ending movement. But somewhere in all that noise, we forget the power of staying still. We forget the strength that comes from choosing home, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Stillness is often misunderstood as inactivity, laziness, or a lack of ambition. But in reality, stillness is one of the most powerful choices a person can make. It takes courage to pause in a world that constantly demands movement. It takes strength to step back from the noise when everyone else seems to be racing ahead. Choosing stillness isn't about giving up. It's about grounding yourself so you can move forward with clarity rather than chaos. When you choose stillness, you're choosing intention over impulse, depth over distraction, and presence over pressure. There's a certain bravery in allowing yourself to stop and face what you've been avoiding. Movement can be a disguise. Busyness can become a shield. When we fill our schedules, our minds, and our lives with endless activity, we don't have to confront the discomfort within us. But when we slow down, when the noise quiets and the distractions fade, we're left alone with our thoughts, our fears, and our truths. Many people avoid stillness for this exact reason. It's vulnerable. It's raw. It forces us to look inward and acknowledge the parts of ourselves that we've tucked away for too long. And facing ourselves requires courage. Stillness also interrupts the belief that our value is measured by our productivity. We've been conditioned to think that constant motion equals success, that exhaustion equals commitment, and that being busy means being important. But stillness challenges that narrative. It invites us to redefine success as presence, peace, and alignment. It reminds us that we are human beings, not human doings. The courage comes from choosing to believe that your worth isn't tied to how much you produce, how fast you move, or how much you accomplish. It's tied to who you are when everything else gets quiet. In moments of stillness, we reconnect with our inner voice, the one that gets drowned out by the world's demands. That voice carries wisdom, intuition, and truth. It tells us what we need, what we're afraid of, what we're longing for, and what we've been neglecting. Listening to that voice can be uncomfortable because it often asks us to change, to let go, or to be honest about the things we've been pretending not to feel. Yet this honesty is where real strength is born. When you allow yourself to pause long enough to hear your own heart, you begin to rebuild trust within yourself. Stillness also creates the space for healing. You cannot heal while running. You cannot process pain you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot restore a mind that never rests. Stillness gives your nervous system permission to soften. It gives your mind a chance to unclutter. It gives your heart the oxygen it has been starving for. Healing isn't loud or dramatic. It's subtle, quiet, and consistent. And you can only access it when you're brave enough to stop long enough to let it happen. Ultimately, stillness is courage because it asks you to be fully present with your life, your emotions, and your truth. Anyone can keep moving. Anyone can outrun themselves for a while, but it takes a brave soul to pause, breathe, listen, and feel. Stillness doesn't make you weak, it makes you whole. It's not the absence of movement, it's the foundation of meaningful movement. And choosing it might be the bravest thing you ever do. Home is the one place where the truth has room to breathe. Out in the world, we carry versions of ourselves shaped by expectation, versions meant to impress, to protect, or to belong. We smile when we're tired, say we're fine when we're hurting, and keep our guard up because vulnerability feels risky in front of an audience. But the moment we walk through the door of our own space, something shifts. The performance ends, the noise fades, and the honesty we've been holding back finally rises to the surface. Home becomes the container where we can admit what we feel, what we fear, and what we need without worrying about being judged. There's a unique safety in the walls that know our footsteps and the rooms that have witnessed our growth. Home doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't ask us to be impressive or strong. It simply asks us to be real. When you're home, you don't have to hide your exhaustion behind small talk or disguise your sadness behind humor. You can cry without apologizing. You can rest without explaining. You can breathe without pretending you're okay when you're not. That kind of honesty is rare and it's powerful. Home invites truth because it offers stillness, something the outside world often lacks. When we're constantly moving, it's easy to ignore our inner voice. But when the world quiets and the pace slows, our emotions have a way of catching up to us. Sometimes that honesty arrives gently, like a soft whisper reminding us to take better care of ourselves. Other times, it arrives with weight truths about relationships, boundaries, or dreams we've been avoiding. And while those truths can be uncomfortable, they are necessary. They guide us back to alignment with who we really are. Home is also the place where we learn to express our needs honestly. Many people struggle to communicate their needs in public spaces. They don't want to seem weak, demanding, or emotional. But in the privacy of home, you can finally acknowledge what you've been suppressing: the need for rest, for connection, for solitude, for clarity. And once you learn to be honest with yourself there, you slowly gain the courage to express those needs to the world outside. Honesty at home doesn't only reveal the hard things, it reveals the beautiful ones too. It reconnects you with the simple joys you're too busy to notice: the comfort of silence, the warmth of familiar routines, the peace of being unfiltered. These small moments remind you that fulfillment doesn't always come from doing more. Sometimes it comes from being more present. Most importantly, home teaches you the value of authenticity. When you practice honesty within your own walls, you begin to build a relationship with yourself that is rooted in trust. You stop abandoning your feelings for convenience. You stop silencing your needs for approval. You stop pretending for the sake of being accepted. And that inner honesty becomes the foundation for the way you show up in the rest of your life. Home is where honesty lives because home is where you return to yourself. It is the space that holds your truth gently, listens without judgment, and reminds you that who you are, unmasked, unfiltered, and unedited, is enough. There is a certain truth that only becomes visible when life becomes quiet. We spend so much time surrounded by noise, conversations, obligations, notifications, expectations, that we forget how much of ourselves gets buried underneath it. Noise keeps us moving, reacting, performing. It keeps us distracted. And sometimes that distraction feels comforting because it gives us something to focus on other than what's happening inside us. But when the noise finally fades, when the world slows down, when the room grows still, that's when the real truths begin to surface. Stillness doesn't create those truths, it simply reveals what has been waiting for our attention all along. When we're constantly in motion, we don't notice the tension we've been carrying for weeks. We don't acknowledge the sadness we've been pushing aside. We overlook the dreams we've been neglecting. Movement can numb us. It can keep us from confronting the things we don't feel ready to deal with. But stillness pulls back the layers. It holds up a mirror and gently says, "Hey, there's something here you've been ignoring." That moment of honesty can be uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Without stillness, we go years without understanding why we feel overwhelmed, disconnected, or unfulfilled. Stillness also brings clarity in places where noise creates confusion. Noise makes us think every problem is urgent, every opinion matters, every demand deserves a response. But in stillness, everything slows enough for us to sort truth from pressure. We begin to see what actually matters and what we've been giving too much power to. We realize that some situations aren't crises, they're just loud. Some people aren't as important as we made them, they're just persistent. Some fears aren't real, they just echo loudly when we're tired. Stillness gives us the space to discern what deserves our energy and what we need to release. There's also a deeper emotional truth revealed in quiet moments. Stillness teaches us things we didn't know we needed. Maybe it shows us that we've been running on empty for too long. Maybe it reveals that we're chasing something that doesn't align with who we are anymore. Maybe it exposes a longing we've ignored: connection, rest, creativity, purpose. These truths don't speak in shouts, they speak in whispers, and we only hear them when we finally allow ourselves the privilege of quiet. Stillness can be confronting, but it can also be incredibly healing. When the noise falls away, our bodies soften, our minds settle. Our breath returns to its natural rhythm. And in that calm, answers begin to form. Answers we've been trying to force through overthinking, through worry, through constant busyness. Clarity is not found in running faster, it's found in stopping long enough to listen. In the end, stillness is a form of truth-telling. It reveals the emotions we've buried, the desires we've postponed, the boundaries we've ignored, and the parts of ourselves we've forgotten. Noise may distract us, but stillness brings us home, to honesty, to alignment, and to the quiet wisdom we didn't realize we already had. Rest is often dismissed as optional, a luxury reserved for later, something we earn only after we've exhausted ourselves. But the truth is, rest is not a reward, it is a requirement. It is a form of healing that your body, mind, and heart depend on. When life becomes overwhelming, we're taught to push through, work harder, stay productive, and ignore the signals that tell us we're running out of emotional fuel. Yet every system in nature, from the tides to the seasons, operates on cycles of activity and rest. Humans are no different. Rest isn't a sign of weakness. It's a biological, emotional, and spiritual necessity. There are wounds you carry that cannot be fixed by thinking harder or grinding longer. Stress accumulates quietly. Pressure layers itself day after day. And even if your mind tries to power through, your body remembers every moment of tension you didn't release. Rest is the moment when the body finally gets permission to repair what you've been too busy to feel. Muscles unclench. Breathing deepens. The nervous system shifts out of survival mode. Healing begins in the silence that activity never allows. Rest also offers a kind of psychological healing that productivity can't provide. When you slow down, your mind finally has space to process emotions you've pushed aside. Grief you buried resurfaces because it needs attention. Anxiety softens because it no longer has fuel. Confusion clears because your mind is no longer overloaded. You can't hear your intuition when your schedule is screaming over it. Rest lowers the noise so your inner wisdom can speak again. Sometimes 5 minutes of quiet can reveal more truth than months of overthinking. There's a cultural lie that rest is unproductive, but the opposite is true. Rest restores clarity, creativity, patience, and emotional resilience. When you are rested, you think better, love better, decide better, and show up better for the people around you. Rest doesn't take you away from your goals, it brings you back to them with more strength and clarity. Burnout creates distance between who you are and who you want to be. Rest closes that gap. Rest is also an act of self-worth. It's a declaration that your value is not tied to how much you accomplish. When you allow yourself to rest without guilt, you are quietly telling yourself, I matter even when I'm not producing anything. That kind of self-acceptance is transformative. It teaches you to treat yourself with compassion rather than criticism. It reminds you that even the strongest people need softness. Even the most capable people need care. Ultimately, rest is a form of healing because it gives you back the parts of yourself that stress steals. It reconnects you with calm, with clarity, with your own humanity. Healing doesn't always look like breakthroughs or dramatic changes. Sometimes it looks like a nap, a quiet evening, a moment of breathing, a pause long enough to feel yourself again. Rest is not an interruption to your life. It is the part of your life that makes everything else possible. Protecting your energy is one of the most misunderstood forms of self-care. People often assume that when you take space, set boundaries, or choose solitude, you're isolating yourself. They believe stepping back means you're avoiding life or withdrawing from relationships. But protecting your energy is not isolation, it's intention. It's choosing where your emotional, mental, and physical resources go and refusing to pour into places that leave you empty. This isn't about shutting people out, it's about letting only the right people in. Every person has a limit, even the strongest ones. And when you ignore those limits, when you keep saying yes out of guilt, when you stay available out of habit, when you endure unhealthy situations for the sake of peace, you begin to abandon yourself. Protecting your energy is the moment you stop doing that. It's the moment you start recognizing what drains you, what confuses you, what stresses you, and what brings out the worst in you. It's not about building walls, it's about creating clarity. It's about knowing the difference between what nourishes you and what depletes you. People who misunderstand this often see boundaries as rejection. They think your distance means you don't care. But in reality, boundaries are one of the most caring things you can do for yourself and for others. When you protect your energy, you show up more authentically. You communicate more honestly. You listen more deeply. You engage from a place of fullness instead of exhaustion. Trying to always be available doesn't create healthier relationships. It creates resentment, burnout, and emotional fatigue. Protecting your energy prevents that long before it happens. Protecting your energy also gives you room to heal. Not all distance is avoidance. Sometimes distance is medicine. There are relationships, environments, and habits that drain you without you even realizing it. The more time you spend in chaos, the more chaos starts to feel normal. But when you step back, you can finally see things clearly. You start noticing how certain conversations make you anxious, how certain people manipulate your empathy, or how certain routines leave you emotionally numb. That awareness is impossible when you're constantly overwhelmed. Space gives you perspective. Perspective gives you wisdom. And protecting your energy doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying everything. You stop absorbing other people's emotions as if they're your responsibility. You stop letting guilt drive your decisions. You stop stretching yourself so thin that you barely recognize your own needs. It's not isolation, it's alignment. It's you choosing peace over people pleasing. It's you choosing honesty over obligation. It's you choosing to be present for yourself the same way you've been present for everyone else. Most importantly, protecting your energy teaches you what healthy connection really feels like. When you no longer tolerate what exhausts you, you make space for what strengthens you. You attract relationships based on mutual respect instead of convenience. You build bonds rooted in authenticity instead of fear. You create a life where you are not surviving, but living. Protecting your energy isn't about distance. It's about direction, choosing to move toward what heals you and away from what harms you. It is not isolation, it is self-respect in its purest form. Learning to enjoy your own company is one of the quietest yet most transformative forms of power. It's not loud, flashy, or dramatic. It doesn't demand attention. Instead, it grows slowly, steadily in the moments when you choose solitude without fear, without discomfort, and without reaching for something or someone to fill the silence. When you learn to be content with yourself, you unlock a strength that can't be shaken by loneliness, external validation, or the shifting approval of others. You learn to stand grounded in who you are, even when no one is watching. Most people fear being alone because they confuse it with being lonely. Loneliness is an emotional emptiness, a feeling of not being seen or understood. But solitude is something entirely different. Solitude is chosen. Solitude is empowering. Solitude gives you space to breathe, to think, to heal, and to reconnect with the parts of yourself that get drowned out in the noise of daily life. When you learn to enjoy your own company, you turn solitude into nourishment instead of discomfort. Spending time alone forces you to meet yourself honestly. There are no distractions, no roles to play, no expectations to live up to. You're left with your thoughts, your feelings, your fears, and your desires. And while that can be intimidating at first, it's also liberating. You begin to understand what you actually want, not what others want for you. You start noticing the dreams you've ignored, the boundaries you've avoided setting, the emotions you've suppressed, and the strengths you've overlooked. This self-awareness becomes a kind of inner armor, protecting you from losing yourself in relationships, responsibilities, or external pressures. When you enjoy your own company, you no longer seek people out of desperation or fear of being alone. You choose them because they add value, not because they fill a void. That shift transforms every relationship you have. It makes you more selective, more intentional, and more authentic. You stop settling for half-love, inconsistent effort, or surface-level connections. You realize that anyone you let into your life should bring peace, not chaos, should support your growth, not stunt it, should respect your individuality, not demand your compliance. When you know how to be alone, you stop accepting relationships that simply keep you company. You only accept relationships that truly enrich your life. Enjoying your own company also builds confidence in a way nothing else can. It teaches you that you are enough, that your presence has value, even when it isn't being validated by anyone else, that you are capable of creating happiness, comfort, and peace within your own space, that you can rely on yourself emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. This kind of self-reliance radiates outward. People feel it, they respect it, they're drawn to it. True confidence is quiet, and it begins when you stop needing constant external affirmation. Ultimately, learning to enjoy your own company is power because it frees you. It frees you from dependence, from insecurity, from the fear of being alone, from the need to please, and from the pressure to constantly belong. It roots you in self-trust. It teaches you that your own presence is never lacking, it's home. And once you learn that, the world can no longer define your worth. You define it for yourself.